Hello and welcome to Degrees of Success podcast. I'm your host, Frida Richards, and today we have an incredible guest, Chief Patrick Smith. He's here with us today to talk to us about his incredible career that has gone from serving in the military with the Marines all the way to the LAPD and currently where he's at in Washington. He's also a two-time University of Phoenix graduate, getting his master's in organizational management. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
So let's just jump right in. You are the youngest of 13, born in Alabama. Tell me about your journey.
Somewhat of an interesting story, I would imagine. Growing up with 12 other brothers and sisters. But my mom and dad were committed to raising their family and keeping us as a close-knit group. And even until this day, we are all work very hard to maintain the integrity of our family, keeping close and working together as a family. And so it's paid off in the long run.
That's awesome. And give me an example. What does it look like to exercise that? There's 13 of you all. What do you do to stay connected? Because I imagine you're not even in the same states.
Well, the vast majority are still in and around Alabama for the most part. Things that they do is even after Sunday, they still have Sunday dinners together. And my sisters still get together. They create their own sisters weekend to where they go off and enjoy each other as sisters. And even my nieces and nephews have cousins weekend, cousins time. So it's a great testament to family.
That is incredible. So you have a strong family that you grew up in, but you also have a family of your own. Tell me more about
Yes.
that.
Well, I have a wife. I have 5 great children as well as 2 grandchildren.
2 grandchildren. Oh my goodness. Are they all tell me where are they located? Are they in Alabama as well? Or?
No, actually, they have taken root in different parts of the country and primarily in Los Angeles, where I served 28 years, but also in Georgia.
So much great culture on that side of the country. So you grew up in Alabama. Speaking of culture, a lot in Alabama, a lot of historical Black colleges as well. Tell me what it was like just to grow up in that environment. How did Alabama aid your character?
Well, I think it was a history lesson within itself. My parents were very much involved in the church, and the church during that time was very much involved in the civil rights movement, many of the things that were going on during that time. And I just happened to be a kid who's seeing, watching, imagining, and in some instances being a part of.
So you actually literally got to watch the civil rights movement grow and literally change the trajectory of African Americans in America. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes. My brothers and sisters, many of them were involved, and as well as the church that I grew up in.
That's incredible. My grandmother actually worked very hard in civil rights here in Arizona. And Arizona was one of the last states to get Martin Luther King Day approved, which just kind of lets you know like the temperature that she was dealing with at the time. And so I find that to be so admirable. So thank you and your family for what it is that you've done just to get us to this place. But not only that, you're also a U.S. Marine. So you've also fought for our freedoms. Tell me more about that.
So I joined the Marine Corps primarily directly out of high school, and I served 28 years in the Marine Corps. I started out at Parris Island, went to California, then overseas, where we went to the Philippines, Okinawa, and also various parts of Japan. Um, and then we made our way back to the States. From there, I went and served time in Jacksonville, Florida, on a naval base there, then to North Carolina, where I also went to Honduras for a while and came back. And that's when I decided to become a member of the LAPD.
And where did that drive come from? So you were serving our country for a substantial amount of time and then chose to serve the
Mm-hmm.
city. Tell me what that looked like for you and how you made that transition.
So um, every male in my family served in the military. My father, I have had four other brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, four other brothers, and all of my brothers served in one branch or the other in the military.
So all the out of the 13, there's only four
There are
boys,
five boys, including myself.
five including
Yes.
you. Five boys out of the 13. Oh my goodness. No wonder they have a really good time for their sister holiday, don't they? Because
Yes.
there's definitely a few of
Yes.
them. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That sounds like a blast. So it sounds like you had an incredible childhood moving on into like young adulthood where you've made some really strong decisions in regards to being a leader and becoming a leader and staying steadfast on that path. Where did you have any influential people in your life that helped you, guided you through that
Oh
path?
my God, I could uh, write you out a list of people. When they talk about a village, I will tell you that during that time frame, at least for me, there was a substantial village that helped us propel, helped us to work hard, provided great examples of moving ahead, and just it truly made me believe that there's nothing that you cannot accomplish if you assert yourself, if you try, if you continue to push ahead, you can succeed. And so I took that to heart. I applied it to everything that I've done. Um, and going into the Marine Corps helped me significantly to develop as a young man, created the discipline that I needed to move ahead. It's helped me along to this day. And so I'm a very proud Marine. I can't take anything away from my journey or my time in the Marine Corps.
Thank you so much for your service. As an Army brat myself, slash Marine brat, I know that it is a great, great sacrifice. And so thank you so much for your service. Along with serving the country and serving your city, you also took the time to invest in your education, ultimately getting your master's in organizational management, which I imagined helped in your vast career. Tell me about your experience at University of Phoenix, why you chose this uh, degree path, and then if you can enlighten me on if and how your what you've learned in that time helped you in your degree. How did that lead you in in your um in your career path?
Well, so I initially started my law enforcement career in Los Angeles with the LAPD. During my time with the LAPD, I started to promote and move up. And in looking ahead, I saw the path that others were on. I saw various things. And so I needed to do more. I needed to excel in a different way. And so the requirements also changed. In order for you to promote in certain areas, you had to have a degree. Well, being a police officer is a very demanding job. It's demanding in a way to whereas you're constantly working, your hours are changing, your days of the week are is constantly changing. So the best choice for me was to um, use the University of Phoenix model to go to college. So I chose on campus. I went to the campus in Gardena, California, and so I started going there. And so I continued to work my way through. I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Phoenix. Very shortly thereafter, maybe a year or so later, I started my master's degree. And the reason for that is first, I wanted to move ahead. I wanted to be competitive in the promotional environment. And I also wanted to um, expand my knowledge. Now, at that time, it would have been easy for me to go through a criminal justice program because that's the field that I'm currently in. However, I chose a different outlet. I chose business and I chose organizational management for my degrees. And the reason for that is because I wanted to add a different perspective and a different way of doing things to things in law enforcement. First, many of things that we do, especially now in the position that I'm in, is about business. It's about numbers. It's about keeping track of statistics and following up and things of that nature. It's about organization. It's about being organized in what you do. And so for me, the program certainly helped me in a number of ways in those areas. One of the greatest was about being able to present, being able to present a program, a system, sell an idea, meet with the community, or develop a systematic approach to doing something that helped me significantly. Coming from the Marine Corps, I didn't really have stage fright or anything like that. I was used to addressing people. I was used to um, dealing with groups and crowds. However, um, taking the business approach and the business model to law enforcement helped me significantly. And I'm incredibly grateful to the University of Phoenix for the opportunities that it has afforded me during that time.
We are so grateful that we have the opportunity to have you here on the podcast and just talk about your incredible career, which I don't want to skip over. Let's jump in to the beginning of the LAPD. 1990, you start with the LAPD, right? 1991 is Rodney King. I imagine that had to be a very interesting year for you. What was that like? What was the temperature?
That was a very difficult time in law enforcement. It was about learning and truly about what was necessary and what the ongoing dynamics of law enforcement should be and could be. There were so many things happening during that time frame. I can remember working during the riots. I can remember being in South Central Los Angeles in the thick of things. I can still, in my mind, see the burning buildings. I can see the ongoing looting, the um, constant shooting in the air, just a number of things that were happening during that time frame. Um, also, also the protest and things of that nature. Now, keep in mind, um, and this is where my background comes in from home. You know, there were protests about civil rights. Here, there were protests about police. And so, one of the greatest lessons that my father ever gave me is I went home and I'm telling my dad everything that's going on. And he's sitting there, he's barbecuing, and I'm talking to him. And I'm going on and on and on, explaining to my dad everything that's happening. And they said this about us, and they said that about us, and blah, 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 blah. And he listened patiently. And finally, he said, You know what, son? This is why they hired you. They hired you as a part of the next generation to make a difference. Some people make a difference from the outside, but you hired to make a difference from the inside. And so it's up to you to move ahead, take on the task, and learn to address things from the inside. And sometimes there are protests, but sometimes they're protesting you. The only thing that you have to do is shut out the noise and listen to the message. And though that was probably one of the greatest lessons that my dad ever sat down and gave me, unsolicited, um, that helped me throughout my career. And many a times, there have been protests, and I've learned to shut out the noise and listen to the message of what is it that you need from me and how I can make things better.
That is powerful. Your dad is very wise. And from knowing your story and reading your bio, I can see how those words must have resonated with you throughout your career.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
One of
that's
the
incredible.
greatest lessons that he ever could have given, and he was very cool about it by sitting there listening and listening to me ramble on, and then finally, you know, come in with a very timely and effective message.
Do you catch yourself doing that now with your children? Because you said all your children are grown.
I do the very best that I can to guide them because as a kid, as a parent, the dynamics change as your kids get older, and you provide them with good, sound, timely advice, but also you're trying to be not just a parent anymore, but a good mentor and a good teacher and a good coach. And so you just have to learn where they are, meet them where they are to provide them the message that they need to hear.
How did you balance that? So you have a large family of five. You're married to your beautiful wife, and your career is taking off. And again, I still want to go through all of this ladder climbing that you've done in with LAPD. But what did that balance look like for you?
You know what? It was very difficult at times. Here's the funny thing. I can remember when I was an officer working and um taking classes at the University of Phoenix, trying to meet all of the demands, doing my homework, making sure that things were done. There were times where I would be working and my partner and I would uh, take lunch, and there was another unit that would show up, and they would also go in for lunch. They would go into the restaurant and they would sit and look out the window, and they would see me in the police car, either reading my books, going through everything that I needed to do, preparing making sure that I'm prepared for the presentation that I have to give, editing my paperwork, everything else. And I can remember then that were looking out the window, pointing at me and laughing because I was sitting in the car doing my work, and um, and they were enjoying themselves to a nice hot meal. So fast forward years later, they were still in the same position doing the same job, and I had promoted about 4 or 5 times since then. And uh, it wasn't until then that they came to me saying, "Hey, wow, we really blew it. We should have been listening and following your lead rather than uh, laughing at what you were doing."
Wow. Good for them for actually taking a look back and recognizing that you were doing the right thing and acknowledging that with you. That's fabulous. You were clearly someone that they aspired to be more like. And I could understand why as we talk about your career. So 1990, you get in, 1991, um, Rodney King. And then, if I'm not mistaken, is it like 97 when they're like there's like the OJ trial,
Yes.
right? So I imagine that also bring like a really different temperature. Tell me more about that.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you brought that up. I was reading and watching television the other day, and everything started coming up about the OJ trial. There were so many things that were occurring, and I was like, "Wow!" I just never realized what a part of history I was truly living through, because there was Rodney King. There were police reforms. There was the OJ trial. There was the, just constant things happening during that time frame that really shaped law enforcement and some of the changes that were made in law enforcement. But as far as the OJ trial, fortunately for me, I was a little bit distant from that. I didn't have to go down to deal with that too much, but it definitely shaped who we were as a department. Some of the changes that we had to make internally, the adjustments that we needed to make as a department, and also um, personal reflection on how you should operate professionally within the organization.
A personal reflection on how you should operate as an organization. How did that come about? So you're saying that during that time, that's what was revealing. How did that come about?
Just recognizing that, hey, there are areas that we could have done better. There are areas that we could have represented ourselves better as a department or as an individual representing the department. There are several things that we could have done that would have made things incredibly easier for that particular case and things that occurred.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me, let's do this because you have so many different positions that you got with the that you worked your way up to go into this position from a Marine to LAPD and then moving up the ladder so quickly. I would love if you could tell our audience exactly what those positions were and what that movement looked like.
When I started, I was just a regular patrol officer working in um, different patrol divisions, such as Wilshire, South, East Division, and then over to our Pacific Division. After that, I was a training officer, or I shouldn't, I was a training officer in Pacific Division. Then I went to become an instructor at the academy, instructing younger officers on the rules, regulations, things of that nature on how to be a police officer, giving classes there. I went on to make sergeant. I went back to our Southeast Division, and from there I worked. Um, I was assigned to the jail. Probably one of the assignments that I never wanted to work. However, I've always learned to not allow the assignment to work me, but to work the assignment. And so, what I did from there, this is when I truly jumped into the University of Phoenix. I started taking my classes while working inside and making sure that I'm doing everything that I can from there. From there, I went to work at Internal Affairs, and I spent a number of years there working, doing in, administrative investigations, criminal investigations, and I started being an instructor there, teaching the Internal Affairs School how to do good interviews, cognitive interview skills, et cetera, et cetera there at Internal Affairs. I made lieutenant. I went to Pacific Division as a lieutenant and over patrol, then assistant in detectives, and then I went back to Internal Affairs and was over a section of investigators there at Internal Affairs. From there, I went to be the adjutant or aide to a commander. Um, and from there, I was promoted to the rank of captain, and I worked in the Hollenbeck division. And from there, I went to become captain at Metropolitan Division. And this includes the SWAT team, K9, your mounted unit, your underwater dive team, crime suppression platoons, and dignitary protection, going from place to place all over the city, handling all of the major incidences and crises within the department, such as hostage situations, active shooters, major mental crisis that required a SWAT response, barricaded suspects, everything in that realm. Or even if it were an active shooter or something, you would be the one responding. So from there, I went over to uh, um, Police Sciences and Training Bureau, and that's where you have an entire reach on the department because you're dealing with the in-service training for officers. You're also dealing with recruit training for all of the new officers. There, I was um, doing reviews of officer-involved shootings, uh, tactical reviews, tactical notices, just a number of things to make sure that the department was moving in the right direction, providing the necessary training to in-service officers as well as the new officers, and making sure that things were handled the way they were supposed to do as related to training.
I heard what you said your father said to you and how that was a bit of like some of the best advice for you, for him to say, son, they hired you for this, to help and guide and change this. Um, and then you're at Eternal Affairs doing just that. Could you give me, could you tell us just a bit about that experience?
Honestly, my entire career with the LAPD was eye opening, and just some of the things that you come in contact with, some of the things that you have to do. Uh, and, the thing is, I enjoyed my time. Um, there, there are probably just a few days that I've worked in my entire career. Most of it has just been me enjoying what I do and being grateful and thankful for the opportunities that I've been given. Um, Working internal affairs was um, something different for me, where you're conducting investigations, but not just regular investigations. You're investigating complaints against officers, making sure that one, they followed department protocols. Two, they did what they were supposed to do, making sure that things were above board, that uses of forces were appropriate, that actions taken was the way it was supposed to be. And so it was just a very interesting time.
I'm sure. And you were clearly well prepared, since not only are you educated in how to, in organizational management, but with your career going from the Marines and spending years with the LAPD, you've clearly had a great impact on that city. So you left the LAPD to go to Alabama. And this is a really, really cool story. So tell me more about the chief leaving and then the mayor picking you over those who should have naturally come behind the last police chief.
My decision to go to Birmingham had uh, two different stories to it. First, during that time frame, my oldest sister was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And so for me, my oldest sister is almost like a second mom because she's always helped to guide me, direct me, look after me, so forth and so on. And so once she got started getting really sick and she was diagnosed with cancer, then the opportunity to become chief of police in Birmingham came up. And so I just looked at it like, you know, this is an opportunity to help her, but also an opportunity to do something more different in my career. And so I applied for the position as chief of police there. There were, I want to say, 63 to 68 applicants for the job. Honestly, I did not think, feel, or believe that, I would get the job. No one there knew who I was. There's a different culture, a different way of things. going on. But fortunately, I ended up getting the position and was able to go back there.
What was it like leaving a very large police department to go to Birmingham? What were the significant differences?
Well, there were a number of differences. Honestly, LAPD is very innovative. It likes being on the cutting edge, and the city invests a lot into the police department. And so, um, going from LAPD going to Birmingham, it was like someone dropped me in 1972. And well, I'm just being honest in terms of budget, training, technology, um, and just ability to maneuver and get things done uh, was more cumbersome than anything. The investment in the police department, in my estimation, for the amount of crime that you have, simply wasn't there.
That makes sense because while you were there, you actually helped implement a brand new plan to help manage and organize the process in which the police officers were reporting or showing up to the crime scenes on time. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, it depends on which one that you're referring to because I implemented several different changes there. I built out a real time crime center on one floor of the building and dedicated that to the resolution of crime. Um, Built out a full center with cameras, license plate readers, and just a number of new technologies that were there that did not exist before. And so, um, it was very difficult starting out, and and that to me came from a very significant case that occurred in Birmingham, where this little child, they referred to her as Cupcake, was kidnapped, and during that time frame, the department had not invested in any technology from license plate readers, cameras, nothing whatsoever. And so everything was done the old fashioned way with, um, um, knocking on doors and hoping that someone will tell you something when that just wasn't the case. The relationship wasn't built there to resolve those things. And so from there, we had an area where they were one floor where they were using as primarily storage. And, it was like, hey, get this stuff out of here. We cleared everything out and came up with a completely different plan of the real time crime center, got it up and running, introduced new technology, introduced uh, new live streaming of body worn cameras and things of that nature to help facilitate what was happening in the community. It brought in the shot spotter technology, everything brought into one area and space to help facilitate what's happening in the field.
What would you say your highest achievement was, whether it be the LAPD or when you went to Birmingham? What were you most proud of achieving during that time?
So with the LAPD, for me, it was just that a young African American male from a town like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, can go into the Marine Corps, join the LAPD, and then get into the top 1% of the highest ranking officials in the department. Just to make that leap, a lot of people would probably mean nothing to, but I know where I came from. I know my starting point in life. I know the difficulties and challenges that I had to go through. And but I took the time to commit myself. I took the time to commit myself to learning what I can about the department, working very hard, taking the jobs that nobody else wanted to take, working the hours that no one else wanted to work, taking the time to study for the examinations when they came up, going back to school and positioning myself when I, I, where I needed to be, even when others, as I mentioned earlier, laughed at me and laughed at what I was doing. I kept going and dedicated myself to what I needed to do to get ahead. So I don't take that journey. I don't take the sacrifice. I don't take any of that for granted because I know what I had to do. I know where my starting point was. I know where I came from, and so to go to Los Angeles and achieve what I did in terms of moving up the ranks, I feel that's a great achievement and something that is incredible. In Birmingham, it is taking and recognizing what needed to be done, um, building out a real time crime center, which even today they just said the federal government was going to invest another $4 million into it because there was nothing. This was a basis for the future, a development for the future, a development um, of what's to come. Uh, and I don't think that people truly understood what I was doing. They don't truly understand the technology. They didn't truly understand the vision that I saw and the direction that I was trying to go. Because as I said before, I was dropped into 1972 trying to bring things up to where they needed to be and to raise the standard of what we were doing and trying to accomplish.
And in doing so, I imagine not everyone had to be happy about so much change. You brought two departments together. You created this crime department. In doing so, and you implemented other software. Your story has been fantastic to learn more about. You've been encouraging to me. So I'm confident you've been encouraging to our listeners. Thank you so much for just sharing this time with us. So anyone looking to get some more incredible leadership advice, feel free to look for Chief Patrick on LinkedIn. And just again, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your incredible journey. And that is the end of our episode today for Degrees of Success. I am your host, Frida Richards, reminding you that your next chapter just might be your best. See you next time.